Who is to be blamed for starting World War I? Welcome to Get Educated. World War I was the first such war in the world in which a different level of suffering and death was witnessed. We can guess its devastation from the fact that the total number of deaths was around 17 million. In this war, British colonies, Spain, France, Russia, Japan, US etc. were involved. We also know it as the Great War, the Global War and a war to end all wars. It is believed that this is the biggest war and in the next 50 to 60 years, such a war will not happen again. But 20 years later, when the Second World War took place in 1939, its name was changed to World War I. In today's video, we will talk about how World War I started, what were the groupings of countries and who is to be blamed for starting World War I in the whole aftermath. But first of all, we have to know a little bit about the history of that time. Backdrop to World War I. Friends, at the end of the 19th century, Western nations were at the forefront of the civilization race. New inventions were emerging, such as military, technology, aircrafts, fashion, etc. Meanwhile, treaties were being signed between the countries, according to which, if one country is attacked, the other country will come forward to help it. Many alliances were formed. We will understand the importance of these alliances later at how these alliances divided the nations into two groups. If we talk about territories, on one hand, France wanted to take back the part of Alsace-Lorraine from Germany, which was defeated by France in a humiliating war about 50 years ago. On the other hand, Germany wanted to keep as many areas as possible under its rule. Meanwhile, Great Britain was busy modernizing its naval ships. The Balkan states nations such as Bulgaria in 1908, Romania in 1881, and Albania were declared independent in 1912. This was a wave of nationalism in other countries. Overall, the situation in Europe was becoming unstable and all the countries were starting to form alliances behind each other. From all these events, we can guess that a warlike situation was beginning to create. Gradually, the major powers of the world were divided into two groups. One was the Allied powers, which included Russia, France, Great Britain, USA, and Japan. USA had joined the Allied powers in 1917. The other side was the Central Powers, which included the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which is also known as the Habsburg dynasty. Apart from that, there was the Ottoman Empire of Germany and modern-day Turkey. After this brief background, now let's talk about the causes of World War I. Causes of World War I. Friends, if we talk about the causes, there were four main reasons for World War I. The first was militarism. Arms race, machine guns, tanks, large armies, and naval ships were militarizing the world. This was supported by the industrial complexes of Britain, USA, and Germany, where military equipment was produced. The second reason was the alliance system. In the 19th century, countries in Europe formed an alliance. The Triple Alliance of 1882, whose member countries were Germany, Italy, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Similarly, in 1904, an alliance called Entente Cordiale was formed, which included France and Great Britain. In 1907, Entente Cordiale was converted into the Triple Entente, after including Russia. After militarism and the alliance system, the third reason was imperialism, i.e. the race to expand the areas of their own rule. All major powers, Russia, Great Britain, USA, etc., were busy extending their colonies. Friends, there was such a race of colonization in Africa that historians use a term for it, scramble for Africa. Africa was unexplored at that time, plus it was a source of cheap labor, and at the same time, the diamond mines that were in the sight of the imperial nations. Due to the interest of multiple countries in Africa, differences began to arise between them. And then the way to solve them was war. The fourth reason is nationalism. As we saw earlier, that in the 19th century, the wave of nationalism was in Europe. Independent nations were calling the fight for freedom and glory of war. The war was being glorified in such a way that this is the last war, then independence will be achieved. The wave of nationalism in the Baltic states was at its peak. Friends, apart from this, there were some other reasons for the war, such as the connection between Russia and the Ottoman Empire to control the Strait of Dardanelles. The Strait of Dardanelles connects the Aegean Sea and the Sea of Marmara. This is a gateway to the Mediterranean Sea via Black Sea. Its strategic location was very important from the point of view of trade. So these were some fundamental reasons. But what was the immediate cause of the war? That is, how did the war start? Let's know the immediate cause of World War I, friends. The immediate cause of World War I was the assassination of the Austro-Hungarian Empire's Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was the second largest country after Russia in Europe. Its member states were Austria, Hungary, Italy, Bosnia, Croatia, Poland, etc. The Archduke and his wife Sarajevo, which is the present-day capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina, were traveling and were attacked on June 28, 1914. The assassination was carried out by Gavrilo Princip of Bosnia, who was a member of a group called the Black Hand. The Austro-Hungarian Empire felt that Serbia was behind this assassination because the Black Hand group was Serbia-based. The Austro-Hungarian Empire told Germany that they think that Serbia is behind this assassination and now we are going to declare war on Serbia. Germany gave full support. Suppose Germany gave a blank check that you move forward and we are behind. And then Austro-Hungary wanted to make an agreement with Serbia on some humiliating terms. Serbia refused to accept the agreement. And then Austro-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Friends, this is how World War I began. Now let's see why this initial blame goes to which country. Friends, it is quite difficult to analyze whether the assassination in Sarajevo changed in the World War. Some historians still do not agree with this. Some blame Austria because Austria was the first aggressor country in the war, which declared war against Serbia. While some blame Russia because it was the first country to give a full mobilization order. To a large extent, Germany is also held responsible for this war. As I said earlier that Germany gave Austria a blank check. Germany made it quite clear that you fight ahead, we have full support. If we talk about Great Britain, it openly supported France. While Great Britain's position was unclear before the war and at the time of starting. So friends, can we say that if Great Britain had already declared support to France, then who knows, Germany would not have marched with its army. And fighting would have been restricted only to Eastern Europe. Although the war started with the fight between the Austro-Hungarian Empire and Serbia, but who knows, they also think that this war will also be localized like the Balkan Wars. But no one would have thought that it would develop on such a large scale. Anyway, as soon as the war started, it escalated very quickly. Let's know the reasons for escalation. Reasons for escalation of war. The first reason is that the alliance system can be considered, because of which the war had become inevitable. American diplomat and historian George Kennan believes that the 1894 alliance that took place between France and Russia had sealed the destiny of Europe. Because of the alliances, a mutual suspicion situation started evolving between the two opposing camps. And there came a time when there was only one way to stop further humiliation. War. The second reason for the escalation can be considered as the naval race between Germany and Britain. Germany believed that sea power is very important for the build-up of a successful empire. The dreadnought battleship of 1906 was one of the most advanced ships of that time. In 1914, both the countries came to an equal footing. And no country left any stone unturned in proving its own ship superior. The third reason. A theory is given that World War I was fought for the desire of economic mastery in the world. German businessmen and capitalists wanted to wage war against Great Britain. Marxist historians are in favor of this theory. Because the entire blame of this war goes to a capitalist system. German historian Gerhard Ritter believes that Germany's Schlieffen Plan of 1905 to 1906 was extremely risky. According to this plan, Germany wanted to defeat France and Russia at the same time. Whatever the outcome, we can say that this plan was the beginning of a disaster for both Germany and Europe. The fourth reason for the escalation can be considered as a miscalculation. A major miscalculation on the part of Austria was that after the attack, Russia would not support Serbia. On the other hand, Germany's unconditional support to Austria, in which no one would have thought that mobilization would mean war. Talking about military generals, they also made a miscalculation that they thought that if they wanted to win quickly, they would get it with full-blown force. Friends, these miscalculations were to the extent that Australian historian L.C.F. Turner calls World War I a tragedy of miscalculation. Conclusion. Friends, we can say from the actions of all these countries that there was only one main reason for the war, that most of the territory should be taken under their control. Some countries used unfair means by being more aggressive, but some where all the countries acted greedily, because of which this war became the biggest war in the history of that time. In this war, not only was there a clash of military and racial supremacy, but the way the leaders of that time handled this situation and the war continued to grow, it can also be called an all-time disastrous leadership failure. Even today, a consensus has not been formed to blame for this war. If Germany is responsible for its aggressive behavior, then Russia was responsible for the maximum arms buildup. So friends, who will we blame for this World War I? It would be unfair to blame any one country here, because almost all the countries were fighting against each other. And in the end, it is important that no matter who started the war, everyone had their own role to bring about large-scale devastation to the world. World War I was a massive social upheaval, because lakhs of women entered the workforce to replace men who had gone to war and never returned. World War I is also responsible for spreading the Spanish flu of 1918. It was one of the world's deadliest global pandemics, in which about 20 to 50 million people lost their lives. Many military conflict-related technologies such as machine guns, tanks, aerial combat, and radio communications were introduced on a massive scale during World War I. So friends, World War I was an event whose long-term negative impacts are still visible today.